AEW stars are reportedly frustrated over declining popularity of the AEW product, and Tony Khan acting like everything is fine. We'll let you know about that, plus plenty of details around original and scrapped plans for The Rock, Cody Rhodes, and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. We've got an update on the TNA Wrestling Creative Team after the departure of Scott D'Amore from TNA Wrestling. Tony Khan announces that Rob Van Dam will be returning on the 420 episode of AEW Collision in April. Also an update on Jeff Hardy suffering a broken nose during the AEW Rampage tapings this week. Speaking of injuries, we've got details on Kota Ibushi, how long he's expected to be out of action for after undergoing ankle surgery. More details on the working relationship between AEW and CMLL and how maybe that's creating backstage issues within All Elite Wrestling. Nikita reportedly is once again injured just after coming back from a long-term injury, and we'll let you know why Post Malone is going to be a playable character in WWE 2K24. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's start off talking about some possible backstage frustration going on right now in AEW in regards to the popularity of the product, declining attendances as well as ratings, and the possible behavior of the AEW president himself, Tony Khan. Now, backstage morale in AEW may have picked up, but that doesn't mean there aren't reportedly some frustrations over AEW CEO Tony Khan. Now, last week, Dave Meltzer noted the improved atmosphere backstage despite some lackluster television ratings. In the current issue of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer provided further details highlighting the current issues backstage in AEW. Here's what he had to say. He said, quote, "When we mentioned last week about morale being the best it has been in a long time, it was noted that the talent is getting along more than it has." He continued by saying, "But with so many wrestlers under contract and only so many that can be pushed, inherently there is going to be frustration because most on the roster are not people just happy to not show their stuff and perform just because they are making good money. There are exceptions to that rule, but when you put together a roster of high-level performers, they are going to want to perform. There is also frustration from a lot of circles since talent comes to the shows and sees the smaller crowd since the start of the year." Khan always paints a positive picture about the company being stronger due to increased revenues or bringing up ratings, and there's the feeling that the popularity is declining overall and changes have to be made to turn it around, and he's acting like everything is fine. Now, what are your thoughts on what Meltzer has to say there? Is he right? Is he accurate? Should there be talent that are frustrated with the decline in popularity in AEW, or, like Tony Khan is suggesting, is everything fine and is it being overblown? Let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. Now, of course, one of the biggest stories in the pro wrestling world over the last few weeks has been really the debacle that is We Want Cody, The Rock, Roman Reigns, and the main event of WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, since the start of this year, a slew of unexpected factors have seemingly resulted in some major shifts in plan for WrestleMania 40. Now, many fans have been captivated, for good or for bad, by the saga of Cody Rhodes in the lead-up to this year's big event. In the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer offered some additional details on the journey to Rhodes' main event rematch against Roman Reigns. According to Meltzer, following the injury to CM Punk in the men's Royal Rumble match, the decision was made internally to have Rhodes shift to facing Seth Rollins. With that in mind, WWE head of creative Paul Triple H Levesque came up with the idea for the segment on the February 2nd edition of SmackDown, with Rhodes stepping aside and offering his support for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to face Reigns instead. Levesque reportedly believed that Rhodes' endorsement of The Rock would tie up the storyline's loose ends, but the fan reaction was overwhelmingly negative. At that point, an audible was called, with Johnson and his longtime writing and producing partner Brian Gewirtz, a former head writer for WWE, feeling that The Rock should turn heel based on the crowd response. That led to the WWE 40 kickoff press conference pitting Rhodes and Rollins against Johnson and Reigns. When the plan was for Rhodes to face Rollins, the idea within the company was that there would would be no men's Elimination Chamber match at the next Premium Live event. However, as plans continued to shift around, it was decided to go back to that match to set up Rollins' WrestleMania opponent. As many have expected, the original plan was for CM Punk to win the men's Elimination Chamber until he suffered that injury in the men's Royal Rumble match back in January. Now, when it comes to the WrestleMania 40 press conference as well, this is certainly quite interesting stuff too. So, last week's WrestleMania 40 kickoff press event saw Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson join forces with Roman Reigns, while the 2024 men's Royal Rumble winner Cody Rhodes revealed he would challenge the Tribal Chief for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship at the two-night event in April. Now, that presser followed days of confusion after the American Nightmare seemingly stepped aside to allow The Rock to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. According to the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, there was once a different idea on the table heading into last Thursday's event in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena. Per the report, WWE CCO Paul Triple H Levesque had a plan to shoot an injury angle on the February 2nd episode of SmackDown, the same night Rhodes said he wouldn't be challenging Reigns at WrestleMania 40, and Johnson confronted Reigns, where the bloodline would take out Rhodes. This would have then led to Reigns versus Johnson being officially announced for Philadelphia at the kickoff. However, Rhodes would eventually return and challenge for the undisputed Universal Championship. Although things played out a lot differently, it said that Levesque scrambled to keep Rhodes in the mix at all time. Additionally, the newsletter mentioned that Rhodes was never going to get screwed and he was always set to face Reigns, although it was unclear whether that title clash would be at WrestleMania or another Premium Live event down the line. Furthermore, the Rhodes injury angle idea for the February 2nd SmackDown was ultimately nixed after CM Punk, who was reportedly set to challenge Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 40, got injured in the 2024 Men's Royal Rumble match. Levesque initially touted Rhodes to fill Punk's spot, with that title match against Reigns coming at a later date. However, it was determined that Rollins versus Rhodes would have made no sense if the trigger was pulled on the bloodline attacking Rhodes. So again, there's lots of confusing details when it comes to that one. Obviously, it appears that an audible was called and we got to the point where The Rock is now a heel, teaming up with Roman Reigns to face off against Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. But what are your thoughts on the confusion? What are your thoughts on the chaos? What are your thoughts on the report? Does it make much sense to you, or are you still just as confused as you once were? Let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. Now, there's been a lot of talk today when it comes to the creative team for TNA Wrestling. Now, contrary to reports, according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, Tommy Dreamer is not heading up creative in TNA. Now, Fightful Select asked around throughout the week and Friday after reports indicated that Tommy Dreamer would be leading TNA Creative. This came from an initial report, I think, from Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Now, Fightful have been told that creative in TNA is unchanged and features Robert Evans, R.D. Evans, Hunter Johnson, Delirious, and Tommy Dreamer. They will now be supported by Gail Kim and George Barboza. Ariel Shrina is overseeing all the content and will be working closely with new TNA president Anthony on all creative/talent decisions. For those unfamiliar, Ariel Shrina is the former GM of the Fight Network who helped spearhead the launch of TNA Plus streaming service. He manages the distribution across Anthem, including securing TNA's global partnership with DAZN and the distribution of TNA streaming channel on digital platforms, including Pluto TV, Roku, and the like. George Barboza is a senior producer for Anthem Sports and Entertainment and creator of the Diary series. So that's kind of the latest when it comes to the TNA Creative. If we get any more information when it pertains to Scott D'Amore after that letter was handed to Anthem Sports and Entertainment executives, of course, we'll let you know in a future video. Now, Rob Van Dam is set to make his way back to AEW. AEW President Tony Khan likes to have themes around events that land on a certain day. The most recent edition of Dynamite had a number of references to Valentine's Day. Then there's the annual St. Patrick's Day Slam event at the end of March. And the final 3 weeks of the year come equipped with the likes of Winter is Coming, Holiday Bash, New Year's Smash, and the like. Now, Khan looks to be continuing that trend in April as an AEW Collision episode lands on April 20. That day of the year most closely associated, of course, with THC. With that in mind, Khan took to social media to announce that WWE Hall of Famer Rob Van Dam would be appearing on the show. RVD is known, of course, as a big advocate of cannabis use, with his legendary run in ECW having multiple references to 420 in his moves, his ring gear, and everything like that as well. Ironically enough, AEW have continued to play up RVD's love of marijuana by having nearly all of his clips on the company's YouTube channel clocking in at exactly 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Now, for the AEW fans who are too impatient to wait to April 20 to see RVD back in action, they got their wish next week on Dynamite when he returns to AEW to team up with Hook and Hangman Adam Page for a trios match. They will take on the team of AEW World Champion Samoa Joe, Brian Cage, and Swerve Strickland, who defeated RVD in a hardcore match on the January 31st episode of Dynamite to earn the #1 spot in the AEW rankings. So RVD doing more dates with AEW. Now, speaking of AEW, we got a bit more of an update when it comes to Jeff Hardy and this broken nose injury. Certainly plenty of people are talking about in regards to his match against Sammy Guevara on AEW Rampage. Now, Jeff Hardy faced off against Guevara during Wednesday's February 14 AEW taping for the match that airs tonight on TNT. Now, Jeff Hardy appeared to suffer an injury during the match, with a fan footage of Jeff taking a knee to the face from Guevara's shooting star press during the rounds on social media. Speaking on his Extreme Life of Matt Hardy podcast, Jeff's brother and fellow former WWE, now current AEW star Matt Hardy, confirmed that Jeff Hardy has a broken nose following the bout. Addressing the situation, Matt Hardy said, quote, "It looks like the Sammy Guevara Hardy curse is real, and it lives on. We thought it ended in 2020, but it picked right back up in February 2024. They were having a hell of a match. It's going to air on Rampage tonight, but they had a great match, and there's a point where Sammy does a move and his knee catches Jeff in the face, and it definitely rocked Jeff, and Jeff for sure has a broken nose, and that's really all we know. They're still going to undergo some more testing and whatnot to try and find out what his total injury is or would be, but we know right now it's at minimum a broken nose." Now, Matt Hardy notably hit his head during a scary spot in his match against Sammy Guevara back at All Out in 2020. Discussing Jeff Hardy's current status, Matt Hardy revealed that Jeff was able to get home okay, noting, quote, "Yeah, we traveled together, we were on the same flight and flew home. He was great, he was in great spirits. It's funny because he's never broken his nose before, which is insane to think about. For most pro wrestlers, breaking your nose is a pretty standard thing that happens at some point, especially if you wrestle for 3 decades like we have. So it was his very first time, and bless his heart, I felt so bad for him because I had the one bump where this is over and this like caved in. He has a nice nose, but it's like crooked like mine now, so welcome to the broke nose club, brother." So seemingly Jeff Hardy minimum has a broken nose, but he could have more. We'll have to wait and see indeed what the diagnosis is. Kota Ibushi. We have a bit of an injury update when it comes to Kota Ibushi as well. Now, Kota Ibushi was officially announced as All Elite following last year's Blood and Guts match, where he served as the final member of the Elite's team against the Blackpool Combat Club. Now, Ibushi has not wrestled since January 2nd of this year, where he took part in a match for Pro Wrestling Noah, wrestling Narumochi Marufuji. Ibushi suffered a broken ankle early in the match, but proceeded to continue the match for 30 minutes before eventually being taken to hospital after the match. Of course, he went into the match, some suggestions say, with a broken ankle as well, kind of aggravating the injuries that he already had. Now, Ibushi underwent surgery on his injury on January 16, and we now know how long he's expected to be out of action. Per the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Ibushi is slated to be out for 6 to 12 months following his surgery. Now, his last match for AEW took place on November 15 in the Like a Dragon street fight, where he, Paul White, Chris Jericho, and Kenny Omega defeated the Don Callis families Konosuke Takeshita, Powerhouse Hobbs, Kyle Fletcher, and Brian Cage. Of course, we wish him the best in his recovery from his surgery. Now, this is quite an interesting story when it comes to the working relationship between AEW and CMLL. Now, while AEW has had a working relationship with AAA since the company's inception in 2019, Tony Khan announced a partnership with CMLL in October of last year following Mystico's AEW debut. With CMLL and AAA historically not working together, details have emerged on part of CMLL's deal with AEW. Per Dave Meltzer in the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, no other Mexican wrestlers can appear on AEW shows featuring CMLL talent. Noting that some wrestlers have issues with Tony Khan honoring this agreement, Meltzer writes, quote, "As noted before, the deal with CMLL is that on any television show that their talent appears on, no other Mexican wrestlers can appear. It doesn't matter if they work for AAA or not, or did in the past. It's no other Mexican wrestlers can appear. Some of the prime Mexican talent is mad that Tony Khan agreed to those terms, noting that AAA never made a demand like that for AEW not to feature CMLL talent, even though they were warring in Mexico. We do know that at the start that Tony Khan's vision was to work with everyone, and in the early days, CMLL didn't allow its talent to go there because they were working with AAA, and New Japan didn't work under them with Harold Meiji. Now, it was noted that Penta and Phoenix were in AEW from day one in particular, and the feeling is disrespectful to them that they would be shows, including perhaps multiple pay-per-views this year, including any pay-per-view anyone from CMLL is booked on, that they couldn't even be allowed on the show. Previously, it was just Forbidden Door. There was an incident with Penta coming off the Jericho cruise where he stayed for Dynamite, as he was under the belief he was booked on and was there only to find out he couldn't appear on the show because they had booked CMLL guys for both Dynamite and Rampage. Now, we've got a bit more of an update when it comes to this actually from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select as well. They've posted out an article this evening kind of pushing back a little bit on Meltzer's reporting, saying that AEW is working with CMLL, but there are some misconceptions regarding the partnership. Now, as I mentioned, it was reported today that part of the deal between CMLL and AEW is that on any television show that talent appears on, no other Mexican wrestlers can appear. It doesn't matter if they work for AAA or not, or did in the past, it's no other Mexican wrestlers can appear. That was Meltzer's report in the newsletter. But Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select is pushing back on that, saying AEW sources claim that is outright false. They pointed to Commander appearing on the January 31st episode of AEW Dynamite when the group from CMLL appeared. Beyond that, Penta was also scheduled to appear on AEW programming this week, but ended up running into travel issues. It was stated to Fightful that CMLL talent is not supposed to be booked in angles or matches with AAA talent, but when it comes to them actually being on the show, the notion that no other Mexican wrestlers can appear is outright false. So kind of an interesting pushback there. Meltzer saying one thing and another outlet saying that's completely false and that's not true. Certainly interesting stuff. Now, an update when it comes to Nikita Lyons. It's not good news for the NXT superstar. Now, Nikita Lyons was on the shelf for most of 2023 due to a torn ACL and meniscus, with the rising star returning to the ring in December of last year after 11 months away. Now, but per Dave Meltzer in the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Lyons has suffered another injury. Now, the report didn't specify the nature or severity of Lyons' injury, but did confirm that she's injured again. Lyons most recently wrestled on the January 9 edition of NXT, losing to Blair Davenport in singles action. This was her third televised match following her return in December of 2023, with Lyons and Lyra Valkyria defeating Blair Davenport and Cora Jade on the December 12 episode, and Lyons scoring a victory over Tatum Paxley on December 19. Now, Lyons also wrestled at 4 house shows ahead of her most recent bout in January. If we get any more details on her status, of course, we'll let you know. Finally, Post Malone is going to be a playable character in WWE 2K24. Multi-award winning artist Post Malone is the musician behind the WWE 2K24 soundtrack and will be joining the game as a playable character. His involvement was revealed in a press release issued on February 16, 2024 that also featured the track listing for the upcoming game. You can see that on the screen right now. The soundtrack listing can be seen and features artists including Malone himself, Grimes, Busta Rhymes, and Yeet. Per the press release, Malone is a fine choice for the role, being a fan of WWE and the gaming franchise, saying, quote, a fan of both WWE and the WWE 2K franchise, Post Malone took on the role of executive soundtrack producer and assembled an eclectic collection of songs across a variety of genres, including rock, country, rap, electronic music, and pop. In addition to his soundtrack duties, the music megastar will also appear as a playable character in WWE 2K24 and will be available for purchase and in a post-launch DLC pack. Malone revealed his mindset from producing the soundtrack, saying, quote, to sit down and just think of stuff that would be badass for the wrestling game, stuff that would get you pumped up. We kind of went in there with every genre, hip-hop, really hard rock, some softer rock, some cool country stuff, so I'm excited. The secret to a great video game soundtrack is a little something for everyone and for every mood. It gets you excited and gets you pumped up to play. This has been a total blast. We have a lot of cool ideas, so I'm super excited. WWE 2K24 is set for release on March 8, with Deluxe and 40 Years of WrestleMania Edition pre-orders gaining access on March 5th, 2024. Of course, we will be playing it here live on the channel as well. But there you go, guys. This latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak with you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very